Hey everyone, this is Saito, and the time has finally come. Zani is finally here after so much hype, and so many people are pulling for her, and if you're not, what the hell are you even waiting for? But I noticed a pretty bad issue regarding her, so I just want to tell you about her because this might become a huge problem for the future. Just regarding the gameplay of many future characters. So let's get just right into the video, but before that, please consider to subscribe because once we reach 500 subs, I will make a special giveaway, where I'll give out a few welcome moons just to repay you for your support. And now let's get into it. So Zani took us so long to finally get here, and people were very happy for her, including me, I really am. And I don't want to say first of all that I don't like the character, in fact I really do like her, like pulling for her was the first thing that I did when I just updated the game, because what I'm trying to talk about goes a bit beyond just the basic design of the character and their gameplay. I'm trying to have a more general view about the whole thing. So Zani is a Spectro main DPS, which we already knew about this, that mainly focuses in using the Spectrofrazzle mechanic. And that's very interesting because before that we had Phoebe, which is not really supposed to be a main DPS from what I understand. She's a very powerful sub DPS, but as a main DPS I feel like she kind of struggles, even though when you do the invocation or whatever it's called, there is one of the two modes that people actually always used that focuses on dealing damage rather than just applying Spectrofrazzle. So I think that she's just made for, both of them. So the first thing about Zani is that she's very closed in any team regarding Spectrofrazzle. She can't really play in a team that's not focused on that. Now, it's true that the game will just save you with that, because the Spectro Rover is very good with her. They kinda just want her to be as available as possible, that's why even the starting character can be very good on her. But the first thing that worries me is that she only has one other character that you can go with, and that character is Phoebe, which is another 5-star. Now, I won't complain that she's a 5-star because a team of like 2 5-stars is not that bad. Also because it's not that difficult, at least to me, to just get a few 5-stars, so it's not the end of the world. But my issue is that apart from the Spectro Rover and Phoebe, she doesn't really have any other guy she could work with, and any other teammate would just be unreliable. It's like just trying to do some nice niche, but even then it's not the optimal way. Like, she's gonna be very lackluster in comparison to a Spectro Rover. I can already think of many other characters who can work very well with a ton of characters. The first example I can think of, seeing the 4 stars in this banner, is Carlotta. Carlotta can work well with Lumi and also Taochi, because both of her outer skill will buff her skill damage, which is very needed. But she can also work with Jeji, so she just has a lot of options that she can go with. And she's also very good, for example, with Yang Yang, which is one of the most generic characters in the whole game, but even then Zani will kind of lack her damage if you just pair her with Yang Yang, because she will have nothing to do with Spectrofrazzle. Now, I understand that they're trying to do something with this mechanic, and I really support it, because it's just an interesting way of just making the game a bit bigger, because honestly many players started to see a kind of repetitive gameplay, even if I find it pretty cool. I recently started playing the quick swap mechanic, and that is very fun to play. That's why I'm saving some gems for Brand, so I can make a team with Changli and him, so that would be very nice. Like, otherwise, if they don't have elements like Genshin did, or just some interesting mechanic, it will end up being kind of almost the same. So you always do the Shorekeeper, put another character, and the main DPS, and that's it. So to avoid that, they are starting to implement stuff like the negative effects, which are pretty nice. I like that there is one for every single element, even if for now we just have the Aero Erosion and the Spectrofrazzle, and I'm sure that with the release of Carthea we are going to see more of Aero Erosion. But even then, I feel like it sort of just becomes a niche. Like, when a character is forced to work with just a negative status, I don't really like that idea, because then they're just forced to always have to deal with only characters that are made to work for them. For example, let's take Jinshi. So I don't play Jinshi, I don't have her, but she's a Spectro character that went before the release of Spectrofrazzle, and they did not rework her just like they did with Spectro Rover. So she has nothing to do with Spectrofrazzle, she just is a completely different character. She could be Fire, she could be Havoc, she will not even be Spectro, because her power is completely generic and has nothing to deal with that. And because of that, she will be able to work with so many different characters, simply because she's very generic. Well, I guess that the next character that will be available just for Zani will be a character that specifically mentions Spectrofrazzle. battle, which to me is pretty sad, because then you're never gonna see them again in a team without that same mechanic being applied. Now, there are a few different things going on with this. So the first one is obviously the sets. Because they really want to push these mechanics, they will make very powerful sets. The best one I can think of is Celestial Light, which increases your spectral damage and also your crit rate, and both of them are very needed, obviously. So they're just saying that if you have a Spectrophrasal character, you're gonna have a good time. And for example, Jinchi cannot use that set because she's dogshit at it. But at the same time, I also think that it's always better to just have a character that can work with any team. Like, I prefer just being generic rather than being meta. And personally, I think that there is a very easy way to fix this problem, and it's by making characters like the Aero Rover. If you don't know, the Aero Rover's effect is that I think with the intro skill he will be able to just turn every negative status into an Aero Erosion stack, and that's very nice. So for example, if you have like Spectrophrasal on it, they will all become Aero Erosion, and that is a great idea to just implement him in a lot of different teams, because you can always just go back to Aero Erosion. So you can just play another completely different team. You can just play, for example, a Havoc negative status team, even though they still don't exist, and then just add the Aero Rover, and that's also going to become just an Aero team. I just find it much more versatile, especially if they just make new teams that are made better for this, like new characters that are able to just change these negative statuses even more, and I'm sure that we're going to see them. But as of right now, I don't really like the idea that Zani is just confined between the Spectro Rover and Phoebe, because I think that it would be much better if you had more options, simply. Not to make her stronger, because she's very strong already, but just to make her be more creative, more original to play. For example, Brent is very famous for how versatile he is, and same goes for Changli. You can play both of them in a ton of teams because they're just very good, generally. By many people, Changli is considered the just quick swap queen, because she's able to be played in almost any team. You can play her with Brent, with Carlotta, with a ton of other characters, because she's kind of fine by herself. So if we manage to unlock this level of versatility in basically any team with any character, it would be much better. Now, I'm not saying that I expect this, because it's something very hard to achieve, but if they tried, I feel like they could do something. It will be very nice once they will just add some characters that work with multiple negative statuses, maybe. That would be very fun, actually. Applying like a Havoc, Electro and Fire negative statuses to your enemy at the same time, and then maybe changing them mid-fight, just to make the game a bit less repetitive, because Genshin can always just use the elements and you can make a shit ton of teams with that. I honestly started to find them very boring, not gonna lie, at least in Genshin, but that's just because it's been years since the game got launched. So if they would manage to make something that goes like so slow, so if they would manage to make something that just dies out so slowly, that would be very nice, especially because they already have quick swap, so we will have two very nice mechanics, two very original mechanics being applied. So yeah, the problem with Zani is not just her strength, because she has a lot of it, it's not the fan arts, because they're amazing, I guess. It's just that even though her gameplay is pretty nice, she will only be able to play it with two characters, and I find it very restricting. And yeah, that's it. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!